Hello and welcome back to the Boropolis Podcast. The first week of the championship is almost done and dusted. We were back at the Riverside yesterday, Nathan, for, drum roll please, an opening day Middlesbrough victory. Now, I was confident going into yesterday, but even saying those words sound quite ridiculous. Nathan, we'll get into it. We'll get into how good it was to be back at the stadium. But firstly, I just want to say, and I know you'll have exactly the same thoughts on it, thank you very, 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 very much for all the support on the season preview podcast. Obviously, it's like we always say, really, it's a hobby. We don't earn a penny off Boropolis, but we are just as much invested. We're just like basically coming on here, having a ramble, tweeting out the news, all that kind of thing. But I mean, some of the views, some of the numbers for the listeners on audio platforms we were a little bit taken back, weren't we? So thank you very, very much. Listen, it might just be the optimism and the excitement of a new season. They might plummet this week and everyone might be bored of us already. And it certainly won't be as long of a podcast. But yeah, I just wanted to get that in nice and early. And also, just whilst I remember, the Football Content Awards nominations, they are coming to an end. I want to say possibly the back end of this week, going into next week, perhaps. If you haven't voted yet, they've changed. Me and Nathan would absolutely love another night like we had in Liverpool. It was phenomenal. Met the guys from Boro Breakdown. Just all round had an amazing experience, and we'd love to do it again and represent Middlesbrough alongside the guys from Boro Breakdown as well. So if you haven't voted, check out our pinned tweet or post on X. Same on Threads. I know we've had a couple of people asking about Threads. Check that out on there and get your votes in as you can. It's more a bit of I don't want to say a lengthy process because it might put people off from voting, but you've got to fill in a little bit of a form. So for the updates on Middlesbrough that we provide in the podcast, then we would really, really, really appreciate it if you could show some support and give us a couple of thoughts. So I just want to get that in there. But yes, Nathan, the support has been quite ridiculous recently.
Yeah, it has been really, really good. Really nice to see. And we always have a look on the Twitter at the start of every transfer window period and look at like the followers that we have and then try and reflect on what we had at the start of the window and look towards the end. And the follower count on Twitter is rising as well, once again, with all the transfer news that we are continuing to provide. So yeah, we'll hopefully be in for a busy end to the window and continue on with that as well. But that's the housekeeping done and out the way with Chris, and we've got an opening day victory to celebrate for the first time in 10 years, which I think is some sort of record in the EFL for
It's got to be
the worst opening day record ever. I'm sure it must be us.
Yeah, I think we discussed it, didn't we, last week, and said, look, even one win in the opening 7 games, let alone a win on the opening day of the season, would be absolutely a marvellous start compared to some of our starts over the last few years. But do you know what? Up until you mentioned it yesterday, and I don't really know why, because, you know, you do sort of think about those types of stats when you're going into a new season, but I couldn't actually believe it had been that long. And look, historically, we don't start well at all, but I hadn't thought specifically about the opening game. And then when you said yesterday, 10 years, and I believe actually, if you're watching on YouTube, the kit that Nathan is wearing would have been the kit that we were wearing on that day 10 years ago. And it was goals from, one of them was Kike. And do you know what? The other one slips my mind. Daniel Ayala, that's who it was. Don't ever question my Middlesbrough knowledge of the last decade and before that period as well. But I don't know if you've picked it for that very reason, but if you have, then it's a nice touch, definitely.
Yeah, a little bit of a clever pick from me there. It was Birmingham 10 years ago. And looking back and thinking of some of the opening day memories that we've had since then, I don't really want to reflect on them.
There's not a lot of pick from, is there really?
No, nothing at all, really. But yeah, we've had an exciting week, haven't we? On all fronts in terms of building up to the season curtain raiser on Friday night, and looking forward to that, and then moving on into Saturday with us. But also, since last week's podcast, and we've had a couple of conversations last week about Ryan Giles and Tommy Conway, but the actual news of the week pretty much was a whole different name, wasn't it, Chris?
Yeah, and funnily enough, we've just mentioned before we started recording a complete new name, and I think a complete new name for. I mean, I know it was briefly mentioned on a Middlesbrough forum months back, but kind of a name out the blue and a name that I've got to be honest, I hadn't heard a lot about. I'm sure most Middlesbrough fans, and I'm sure there will be some as well that will have been aware who Micah Hamilton was before his name was reported. But yeah, it was one of those, and plaudits to the recruitment staff again, where it kind of pops up in the morning, interest, deal moving along nicely, and then pretty much by the time the evening had rolled round early last week, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, it was medical scheduled, deal near enough agreed, it's happening. Middlesbrough have got their man, and I mean, it's it's so refreshing. We kind of touched on it last week that I'm thinking now, and I honestly, okay, possibly Ryan Giles, and obviously we'll discuss Tommy Conway and kind of where that's at as well. But has there really been a concrete name that has been mentioned this summer where Middlesbrough have missed out on their key man? I don't think there is. It was a case of Micah Hamilton, there's interest. It was initially picked up from
It was Mike McGrath from
Mike
the
McGrath. Yeah, you're
yeah.
right. And then I think the Athletic picked it up a little bit later on in the afternoon and said medical scheduled, fee agreed. And then apparently Middlesbrough's number one fan this week has been Fabrizio Romano as well, come out with some figures, which now we actually know. I mean, okay, fair enough. He's reporting on Middlesbrough, which is a little bit unheard of, but yeah, I mean, he could have reported the right figures. That would have been a little bit more helpful. But do you know what? At least he's paying attention to championship clubs, and he gets a lot of stick on Twitter. But yeah, you can't say he's ignoring the EFL at least this week. So yeah, I mean, let's talk about Micah Hamilton, what he's got to offer, what we know about him already, and kind of where he's going to fit in. So I think firstly, the obvious place where everyone went to was the fact that his first goal for Manchester City, his first professional goal, was in the Champions League. I mean, that is the type of pedigree that we're getting. Listen, okay, we are not picking up Bernardo Silva by any stretch, but a really, really exciting one in the fact that, you know, if you look at it bluntly, you've got to be some player to be in and around and involved with a Pep Guardiola squad. And Hamilton has spent the whole of pre-season on Manchester City's tour. And obviously, now that the sort of dust settled, the signing's been announced and there's kind of more information out there. Dom Shaw done a really good piece for the Northern Echo about kind of the story of how Micah Hamilton happened. And actually, it kind of transpires that really the signing was almost one that Middlesbrough didn't expect to have the opportunity of this summer. It was kind of a case of they were absolutely aware of Hamilton. They'd watched him, they'd scouted him, they looked at his performances for Manchester City's youth teams and probably thought, well, there's no chance that we could get our hands on him, let alone on a permanent deal, which is kind of the biggest bonus of the whole thing. And yeah, it moved so fast. It happened. By all accounts, I think by the time that probably it made it to public knowledge, most other championship clubs didn't have enough time to try and hijack it or try and jump in because Middlesbrough had done their sort of diligence on the deal, on the player, and wrapped it up quickly and got their man. And I mean, it's a signing that I'm not going to lie, is an unknown for me, and I'm sure, like I said, many other Middlesbrough fans. But it's an exciting one, isn't it? It's a signing of real sort of the excitement of the unknown, but also the excitement of the pedigree. As I say, you've got to be half decent to go on a Manchester City pre-season tour and play in the Champions League for a Pep Guardiola team, haven't you?
Yeah, of course you do. And being in and around the squad pretty much every match day for them last year, as well as they won the Premier League for the 100th time in a row. Um, but yeah, it's a signing that, as you mentioned, there has a little bit of unknown to it, considering yes, he has only played a handful of games for Manchester City's first team, being in and around the under 21s. He was the captain of the under 21s as well. From everything that I've seen of him in terms of his interviews and him as a person, I think that it's really, really good signs that he seems like a really impressionable young lad. Speaks really well, really confident, and yeah, I think he'll fit right in with the group that we've got at the club so far. Um, I think that what makes it interesting is he has previously started a lot of games off the left-hand side, and he is a right-footed player, so cuts in on that right foot. But having seen clips of him, he can go down the side and cross the ball in with his left foot as well, as he got an assist last week on Man City's pre-season tour doing just that. But he can play across all of the front line, really, left, right, or in the 10. It's really exciting, Chris. He's got bags of pace, tricky, can go either foot. It's so exciting, and he's on a permanent deal as well. It's incredible that we've been able to secure this, I think.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And as I say, really, kind of the permanent nature of it is a big thing as well. But also kind of from the initial figures that Fabrizio Romano reported, we now kind of know from various, trusted sources, various journalists, that actually that deal is kind of the initial figures. It didn't look like a horrendous deal, but it wasn't kind of, it wasn't something where you'd go, wow, how have they done that? It was the initial kind of fee that he reported was, of course, higher than what our initial outlay is. I think he reported that it was, it could get to 5, but it was initially 3.5, whereas it's actually only 2. First of all, potentially rising to that kind of figure. And then the buyback clause as well, which is kind of a different element. Initially reported by Romano as 11 million. And I think a lot of Middlesbrough fans thought, well, I'm not being funny. If he has, a good 6 months, they might just snap him back up and say, all right, okay, yeah, Middlesbrough has still made profit, but it's not if he goes and has a season like Jadon Philogene, then you're kind of thinking, well, have we just had a glorified loan here? We now know, obviously, it's significantly more than the initial reported 11 million buyback. So I think all round, as you say, the main word that we've both used is excitement, because it's a little bit of it's not a player that's had a lot of senior football, but by all means a player with a humongous amount of potential, and someone that's quite clearly, again, from that piece that Dom put out, someone that quite clearly jumped at the chance to think, okay, now I'm ready to go and explode on kind of the senior level of football and show everyone what I can really do. And the attitude in that, the sort of confidence, like you say, to be able to go, no, it's my time to go and really show everyone what I can do. I don't just want to stay around the fringes of the Man City team and just be happy to, sometimes get on the bench, sometimes get the odd minute or two at the end of a game. He wants to go and prove himself. And as you say, I think we touched on it last week, with the kind of position of Marcus Force, and although great option, but he's somewhat becoming a little bit unknown in terms of when he's going to be available, when he's not. Having that additional option, as well as what we already have, is just another kind of, it's another addition for that front line where you just think there's now, for the most part, even in the full squad, not just the forward line, there is 2 good, if not top end championship players in each position throughout the full of the squad. And I mean, we said last week, if you can get the right specific additions as well as what we've already got, then there's no reason why we can't really challenge. And listen, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but as I say, it's a case of, I can't remember a team, honestly, in the last few years, especially, where we have had a genuine sort of squad where if one player has to sit out or there's a suspension, the person coming in to replace them, or if someone drops out of form, is going to be at the same level, if not potentially, depending on form, someone that you might look at as a Championship fan and think, well, I tell you what, he would start for us. It's not there's no significant drop off really in terms of quality throughout the squad.
Yeah, it's just really nice to see, actually. And it's relatively similar to that of 2 seasons ago, really, with our loan players, where we had quality in depth throughout the full squad, pretty much. And the interesting thing now, and the exciting thing is, they're all our players. We haven't got a loan player in the door as of yet, which is very, very exciting. All our players, and I'm so excited for the season to be fully underway and see what each of them can offer when they all get the chance on the pitch. Just so exciting with the Hamilton signing. I think it was one of those where, when you look at the reaction on social media from other clubs,
And Manchester City fans, more importantly.
yeah, they couldn't believe the fact that he'd been allowed out on a permanent deal rather than a loan. And teams in this division and their fans, the reaction was pretty much of, well, how have they done that? Why weren't we in for him? And
Yeah.
look, the pull of the football club at this moment in time is really, really big. Signing young players with aspirations of moving their career, developing their career forward, and hopefully that'll be all part of the plan to push this club back into the Premier League.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you've led quite nicely on to a potential other young, exciting player that may well be joining the club on a permanent deal. We briefly discussed him last week, and kind of the picture has changed since then. I think last week, to be honest, we recorded on Sunday and thought within 24 to 48 hours there's going to be a significant update. And to be honest, there was a little bit of an update in the fact that kind of more clubs had joined the race for Tommy Conway on Monday, but nothing sort of substantial to say the deal's moved along or another club have kind of come in and, bids have been accepted. We still aren't at that stage. But there was, I mean, kind of going chronologically, Monday saw Hull join the race. It saw Stoke supposedly join the race. Burnley was still in there. I think it got up to the stage where there was four that were named and one kind of mystery Championship club that were all trying to have a go at signing Tommy Conway. Since obviously that point, it went a little bit quiet, in all honesty. It kind of got to the back end of this week. And then yesterday, really, it kind of picked up again. There was comments from Maddo and Mark Jury on the BBC T's coverage of the game yesterday, which, to be honest, I'm not going to lie, I didn't hear, but we've seen people mention it in various forums and online and things like that. That from their sources, it looked like there was positive signs in that deal. And then following the conclusion of our game yesterday, I mean, the whole situation of this again is very strange that we're getting updates from a board member of a different Championship club. But anyway, Tan Kessler of Hull City. And I mean, listen, it's kind of one of those things where you don't know who they might sign or what they might do for the remainder of this window. But I'll tell you one thing, if Hull City are anywhere near as good on the pitch as they seem to be sending out executives for PR interviews this season, then they'll break the points record, because there's at least one big interview from them a week at the moment. And I mean, in a sort of positive light, he did give us a little bit of an update on Tommy Conway. So thanks for that. Yeah, so the update was yesterday that kind of basically Hull have gone in for Conway. And basically the indication was that actually he favours a move to Middlesbrough. He's leaning towards Middlesbrough, and he's already had positive communication with Michael Carrick. Now, with that being said, obviously it was a little bit more information, but exciting information. And then yesterday evening, Fabrizio Romano, as I say, Middlesbrough's newest number one fan, drops the news that Tommy Conway is in advanced talks with Middlesbrough. and there's discussions ongoing of him potentially signing a 4-year deal with kind of multiple other interested clubs, both in the Championship and also the Premier League, which was quite interesting. But there's kind of no progression since that point. I mean, once that come out, I think everyone kind of seen the word advanced and thought, well, okay, that must be on the club and player side, but actually it kind of doesn't seem like that. And again, we best kind of sort of pre-warn everyone, this is on Sunday evening, so by the time this comes out tomorrow night, bid may have been accepted, he may have done a medical, he may be en route to a different club altogether. But, I mean, I hope that's not the case. But, yeah, I think as Dom Shaw as well has put out there today, clearly Middlesbrough are in a great position with this one. The player has his preference, he wants to join the club, but at the moment, club to club, nothing's sealed, nothing's done. And I think Bristol are probably just trying their best to get as much money as they possibly can out of Middlesbrough. And we kind of await any substantial sort of bid accepted medical talk from any real trusted source, I guess.
It's weird, isn't it? It's been a very, very strange week on the Tommy Conway front, as you mentioned about the radio silence pretty much all week, and then with the sort of Hamilton announcement happening on Sky Sports, which everyone will have seen that's watched the podcast, and then the interview with Kieran Scott in which he said that one was close, but one or two were bubbling away, but one was close, with the sort of names that have actually come out into the press. We all immediately jumped on that as, well, Conway's close then. And then Tan from Hull spoke. And I mean, apparently he's had clear conversations with Michael Carrick. Very strange that he can just throw up other clubs' dealings on the media, but yeah, it's fair enough to him. And then, yeah, Romano with the advanced talks last night, but no deal agreed. Now, you would assume, like most sort of business happens in terms of going out into the media, it's usually club is interested in X player. The club will make a bid for a player. It'll either be accepted or rejected, and there'll be improved bids or whatever. And then once the bid's accepted, it then moves on to talks. When in this case, it appears that Bristol City have said, here's a list of your interested clubs that have put bids on the table. We're not accepting any yet. We're going to wait for you to pick a club, and whichever club you pick, we're probably going to try and rinse the most money out of.
Yeah, it does seem like that, doesn't it? And I mean, with kind of the use of the word advanced in the tweet, I think in fairness, a couple of people even misconstrued it and probably had to reread the tweet again and think, actually, he's only said personal terms, like rather than an advanced in the sense of the deal. So yeah, I guess we're a little bit further forward, and hopefully, obviously, we get positive news on that in the next 24, 48 hours. It does seem like it's heading that way, but obviously, like everything in the transfer window, you can't really count your chickens, as Hull City know all too well. Whilst we're on the transfer front, listen, there's probably not going to be a podcast all season where we don't mention him briefly, but Ryan Giles, I must say, and I don't kind of want to spend another 5 minutes talking about him, because I think all of the signs are now pointing towards the fact that, and rightfully so, Middlesbrough are looking elsewhere. They may well have one last go and see if they can kind of work something out with Hull. But, it seems like Hull they almost don't want to swallow the pride and realise that they made a mistake pledging so much money to sign Ryan Giles on a permanent deal. I just can't believe the comments that Tan Kessler has made yesterday. I mean, the kind of nature of them to say Ryan needs to realise the commitment that we've made, the investment that we've made for him. And also, we're expecting that he's going to repay us by providing the form that he showed in a Middlesbrough shirt. and then got quite snappy, actually, with the BBC interviewer when he was asked specifically about Middlesbrough, and kind of said, well, not that I'm aware of, no. Almost like a petulant child would. And, I mean, if I'm Ryan Giles in that situation, and I know he started yesterday at left wing and was brought off, they clearly, or the new manager clearly doesn't kind of favour him in his natural position as a left back. But, I mean, no wonder he's unhappy. He seems to be the talk of every other Hull City interview. They had the kind of press conference with the chairman that was broadcast as well. And it's just mixed signals constantly out in the open. And if I'm a player, especially Ryan Giles, I'm just thinking, I wish you'd just stop talking about me, to be honest. And then yesterday's comments were downright disrespectful, really.
Yeah. From the chairman in midweek calling out the journalists, saying that the stories were pretty much lies in terms of them reporting Boro's interest and also Giles's interest in coming back, to the vice chairman's comments yesterday, which, as you mentioned there, do appear to have been quite sort of angry and aggressive towards the reporter when asked about Ryan Giles. Yeah, it appears that there's something going on in the background there. Maybe that is just the chairman and the board sick of being asked questions about him and everything is fine. Or maybe there is something to read into with the comments that he made yesterday, especially being very direct towards Ryan Giles, saying he must respect the investment that we've made and he chose this project and such like. So yeah, a strange situation that's rumbling on. Played out of position yesterday. They've just signed a left winger, so he won't be playing there for very long. And it doesn't look like he's the favourite left back. So yeah, it's either swallow your pride, Hull, or you'll just have an unhappy player for another 6 months at least.
Yeah, and I think look, we've had our weekly Ryan Giles update now, so I guess we might even get another interview from kind of the tea lady this week at Hull to say that Ryan Giles is actually having milk and 2 sugars, and previously he's only had just milk. So, you know, they've noticed a change in his attitude, but he needs to respect the project. So yeah, we'll wait on that from the tea lady over at Hull City. But yeah, Nathan, kind of beyond the transfer front, we are up to date with all that now. Of course, it's still very excitement and bubbling away, to quote Kieran Scott. But the main point of the podcast, the main level of excitement, all down to yesterday's game, as you say, the curtain raiser of the championship season back at the Riverside. Very, very nice in terms of weather. I think last season, actually, I want to say the opening day weather was quite shit, actually. And I always think that the first day of the season, it's one of those where I always misjudge what to wear. I had a hoodie on yesterday and I was absolutely, and not in the sense that Kieran Scott and the rest of the recruitment staff are doing, I was absolutely cooking in that stadium. I wish I hadn't have worn a hoodie because I was absolutely boiling. But anyway, I'm not a weatherman, so I'll stop reeling on about that. But yeah, excitement levels in general. Everyone knew what the team was going to be. Everyone knew that it was kind of Johnny Howson or Aidan Morris, probably likely to be Aidan Morris. The rest of the team picked itself. And I've got to say, we were out the traps quickly, pressing, passing, being in Swansea's faces. Swansea's manager was probably at the side of the pitch thinking, why on earth did I make those comments about the atmosphere? Because the stadium was bouncing, obviously Red Faction in their new section of the ground. And overall, just everything that you want in terms of the first 45 minutes of the season. It just give everyone even more of a reason to be excited, because I thought we were great first half yesterday.
Yeah, it's the best half of football I've seen on opening day, the best half of football on opening day that I've seen in 10 years.
It doesn't take much, to be fair.
Doesn't take much. But yeah, do you want to know what? I actually thought we were really good in the first half yesterday. As you mentioned, we were pressing really well, which I haven't really seen us do all too much, even last season, really. our press wasn't particularly great. But in the first half yesterday, it was quite good. We had opportunities where we did nick the ball off Swansea's back line and drive forward, but unfortunately, a couple of those just came to nothing. But yeah, a couple of chances in the first half. The main one was probably from Swansea's corner kick. Dieng's ball forward, which was fantastic. Bit of backspin on it, enticed Vigouroux out of his goal, and you're hoping that Jones probably takes it round him rather than doing what he did, which was try and lob him from about 45 yards and yeah, just knocked it over. But yeah, then Jones yesterday, I thought at times he was being slightly more direct than I'd seen him be last season. And I thought we were getting a little bit more of the old Isaiah Jones back with actually facing up his fullback and running him. And just like last week in the friendly against Heronveen, he won penalty once again, drifted inside, took it one way, then drove inside and looked like he was going to hit a shot with his left foot. Just gets clipped by Abdullah, the left winger for Swansea. The Swansea fans on Twitter were saying that it looked questionable. There's no question about it. It was nailed on. And you're just hoping, because I did feel like yesterday, after watching the opening 20 minutes, half an hour, that whoever got the early goal, if it was us, we'd have a relatively easy afternoon. And I mean, we did, I suppose. We got that penalty, laugh. Last week, he had it saved. This week, steps up, smashes it in off the post, actually, the inside of the post. Really nice, laugh, off the mark. And do you want to know what? Apart from maybe the last 5 minutes or so of the game, we had a relatively easy afternoon yesterday. Swansea didn't really offer a whole lot, did they, Chris?
No, they didn't. I was listen, I can't lie. I don't know the ins and outs of Swansea's business in the summer, but from what I saw yesterday, it'll be kind of nothing more than a sort of lower to mid-table finish for them. And listen, they might shock a few. They might turn things around and have a wonderful run of form. But kind of everything I saw from them yesterday, I was almost disappointed in a sense, I guess. I was expecting more, especially given it was the opening game of the season. It wasn't all too inspiring from their point of view. And listen, that was a kind of certain way of looking at the game. I actually thought that if it was a case of Swansea playing badly or Middlesbrough playing well, first half especially, I thought it was Middlesbrough playing well. I thought there was a couple of standouts. Riley McGree had a really good first half. I thought Luke Ayling was up and down, and not only up and down, but really just assured defensively as well. And yeah, there was a couple. Isaiah Jones, to be honest, I know, listen, we'll kind of get on to the sort of end product discussion, at least for yesterday. And I think most people kind of know Isaiah Jones and what he's about and kind of some of the flaws in his game and some of the things that he's excellent at. Yeah, there was a couple of good performances. There was the slight scare. Aidan Morris kind of goes to pass it back to Senny and just kind of underhits his pass, and Senny actually does really well to claw it away and stop what would have been against the run of play completely. But listen, it didn't happen. Let's just forget about it. I don't want to kind of single Aidan Morris out, because I thought for a first game in the Championship, he handled himself in all aspects of the game incredibly well. So look, good signs all around. I think the best way I can describe the performance as a whole was it was a little bit like watching England. We got the goal and then took our foot off the gas a little bit. And I think, as you say, only really until the last sort of 5 or 10 minutes, it was a case of Swansea growing into it. And it was just kind of the natural nerves of only having a 1-goal lead and basically the away team thinking, well, we've got nothing to lose now. There's 5 minutes left. Let's just throw everything at it. And I must say, the likes of Ayling, the likes of Engel, Matt Clark and Vandenberg, really so solid. And I think Rav even takes one straight in the face as well in the last few minutes. Just listen, there was kind of no point in the last 5 minutes where I thought, oh my goodness, like I am going to be sick here. But it was uncomfortable to say the least. And as I say, some really good blocks. Matt Clark, I mean, it's his bread and butter, isn't it? I know kind of I've made my feelings clear, and sometimes he gives me a little bit of a kind of scare on the ball, and I know he sometimes doesn't look too comfortable when he's got it with his feet. But I mean, one thing that he is brilliant at is going and meeting crosses, getting his body on the line, and just being the art of defending is what Matt Clark lives for, and he showed that yesterday, as did Rav. And yeah, I must say, I thought especially on Morris in the last 10 or so minutes, and actually kind of the chance for Jones to square it to Bergzorg comes from Aidan Morris showing that bulldog-like approach in midfield and ratting away and closing people down and not letting Swansea build any more pressure. And listen, that's kind of if you're in the stadium, sometimes I think you almost appreciate that energy, that kind of will to stop the progression of Swansea up the pitch. You appreciate that a little bit more, and Aidan Morris done that a few times, especially in the closing stage, which was a really nice thing to see. And yeah, I mean, listen, let's talk about it. As I say, for the most part, there wasn't kind of any glaringly obvious huge misses. Latif had a header, Azaz had a chance where he probably should have put away. But the real major one is as I say, Morris kind of intercepts a potential Swansea attack, flicks it round the corner for Jones. Bergzorg's come on and replaced Azaz, and they are running towards goal. Jones has got the ball at his feet, and all he needs to do is square it to Bergzorg. And I think the only thing that I can think he's basically gone across his mind is he can see Cabango running back, and he basically doesn't have enough confidence in his left foot to square it to Bergzorg without it being either under hit or quite not having the precision to hit Bergzorg. Now, I don't want to kind of single out Isaiah Jones, but when he races through and kind of rolls one to the back stick and it gets cleared off the line, you're kind of thinking, oh my God, what is he thinking? Look, I don't want to hum and haw about it because we won the game, but my goodness, at the time, and especially if Swansea had have equalised, there would have been some seriously angry people in that stadium because of that moment.
Yeah, there would have been, and there's some seriously angry people on Twitter now, despite us still winning the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the top and bottom of it is he should square it, but he doesn't. And I suppose his mindset is he can either open up and square it, but as you mentioned, Cabango's coming in that way to block the pass. But then again, Cabango does then run past Bergzorg and retreat to the line, and he's the one that blocks the ball off the line. So just if you knock it across to Bergzorg, then you're hoping that he can just tap it in. But even then, I don't necessarily know if I was confident that Jones could, one, knock it with his left foot across goal to Bergzorg, and two, because I don't really know Bergzorg, but from what I've seen, I could imagine him taking a touch. So
yeah.
I really just don't know, but I'm glad that it in the end didn't result in any necessary hardship. But yeah, seeing the reaction at the full-time whistle was a sight to behold. Bergzorg was so upset.
And listen, I know, we mentioned his character and kind of what some of the Huddersfield fans had said, but I think it was justified yesterday. It was, because I know we're laughing at it and we can now, but if Swansea do go and nick an equaliser, I mean, if they had got a point out of that game, it would have been the most undeserved thing you've ever seen. And Bergzorg, rightfully so, it's the winning mentality, it's the striker's instinct. Of course, he wants to score, but it would have put the game to bed. So, look, we don't want to kind of get too drawn into it and sort of single out Jones, but yeah, it's one he won't want to see back, and I'm sure and the next chance he's in that situation, he definitely won't try and shoot. I think just touching on yesterday as well, it was an all-round a nice day, a nice result, a kind of hoodoo that has been finally stopped. But one of the major points yesterday was seeing Tony Mowbray come out at half time. It was obviously you'd come up, and for those of you that have listened to the podcast, Nathan, you'll know Nathan sits a little bit in front of me at the Riverside, and obviously we usually have a little bit of a debrief at half time. And you come up, stood alongside myself and my dad, and we watched Tony Mowbray and Slaven and Proctor come on the pitch. But I think, look, Proctor and Slaven have got to take a little bit of a backseat for this one. And in fairness, they did. They let Tony Mowbray speak. And it was just so heartwarming. I mean, he said kind of what a humbling experience it was and how difficult of a 6 months it had been. But just to see him fit and healthy, out on the pitch, receiving his legacy number, and just kind of thank everyone. It was a one where literally you're thinking, oh my God, there might be a little bit of a lump in the throat type situation here.
Yeah, really nice moment. And I thought he spoke really well as well about sort of little kids being put in front of him that probably don't even know who he is, but he's their dad's hero. And I remember when I was a little lad and going to the games, and Tony Mowbray was named Middlesbrough manager, and didn't have a clue who Tony Mowbray was, but my dad sort of told me he's the man. Tony Mowbray is Middlesbrough pretty much. He's my dad's hero. And yeah, a really, really nice moment yesterday at the Riverside, seeing a lot of people in and around us in the West Stand will have sort of grown up watching Tony Mowbray playing for Middlesbrough. And yeah, to see him back and fitting well after his illness is really nice to see. And yeah, all the best to him. I hope we see him at the Riverside a couple more times this season, supporting Boro, and not like last season on the enemy side at Sunderland.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Want to know what? I love the fact that he even managed to sneak in sort of a little bit of chat about sweets and revels. I think we all know how much Tony Mowbray loves his chocolate and his sweets, and he even managed to stick a mention in of that whilst he was kind of holding back tears of saying, you know, how humbling it had been. But he even managed to get that in, which was a funny one as well. But yeah, as you say, obviously best wishes go to him as he kind of continues his recovery. But the main thing is obviously seeing him yesterday, seeing the reception that he got, and by all means, very much the exact deserved reaction that he should have got and did get. So yeah, a really heartwarming one yesterday. As I say, I mean, obviously, if you kind of want to go into any other avenues or specific performances, by all means, we can discuss that. But I think in the end, yesterday, the correct result, I think we could have made it easier for ourselves. We did have chances, but look, it was kind of everything that you would expect from an early season game in any division. I think by kind of 70, 80 minutes, you could see that, you know, players don't have, okay, yes, they've just been through pre-season, but the minutes are shared in pre-season. Some of them probably haven't played to that extent a full 90 minutes all pre-season. And I think you did see a slight drop off in energy levels. Not to say anyone's unfit or anything like that. That's not what I'm suggesting. But in every sense, it was an early game in the season, except Middlesbrough just come out on top and won the game. That's the only difference, really, to what we would usually see. But yeah, just really happy and excited for kind of what's to come this week as well.
Yeah, I think yesterday was pretty much just get 3 points. Get 3 points on the board, get us off to a winning start, and the performances will come in a couple of weeks' time type thing. Yeah, get us off the mark. That was the main thing. 3 points on the board. You look at the league table already, Chris, because I don't care. We want to be up there in this division from the get-go. We don't want to be playing catch-up. We want to be the pace setters of this division and getting off to the correct start for a team that wants to aspire to being at the top of this division. And yeah, there was, I suppose, yesterday and this weekend, you sort of look at it and you think, oh well, I didn't expect that result to be thrown up, but watching our opponents for this week, one in the Carabao Cup and one in the league, and I've expected Leeds to have made lighter work of Portsmouth than they did. You think you've scored a 90th minute winner, Pompey, and then Leeds go up the other end and score immediately after you do. I've lived the feeling. It's a shit feeling. I hope that we don't have the same feeling this week as we head to Ellen Road in the first round of the Carabao Cup. I expect there will be changes to the starting 11 from Saturday. I don't know who we will see in the starting 11. I imagine there'll be maybe a change at right back, probably changes in midfield, and definitely changes across that three behind Latte Lath. You never know. We might have another centre forward in the door by then. We'll have to wait and see on that front. But what are you sort of hoping for from Wednesday, Chris? You are the fairest weather cup fan ever. And do you want to know what? So was I until last year, until we went on a magnificent run. You can only beat what's put in front of you, like we did last year. We played a lot of lower league sides last year, but look, as said, you can only beat what you get in the draw. And we found ourselves in a semi-final very quickly by beating League One sides. But tomorrow, or sorry, this week even, we have the most difficult side that you could probably get in the draw.
Yeah.
With Leeds away.
Yeah, the draw hasn't been too kind in that sense, has it really? But do you know what? I'm gonna go there again, Nathan. And if you rewind to the second podcast of the season for the whole duration of the time that we've done this podcast, you could quote me word for word. I've got to be honest, I'm not overly fussed what the result is. I am the fairest weather cup fan, possibly in the whole fan base. Look, it's slightly different because it's Leeds, but I will say if we went out and it was a change side, I certainly wouldn't be waking up on Thursday morning and sort of crying into my coffee at work. It won't be the case. But listen, it's going to be, I'm more excited for the game, to be honest, because it's going to be a chance to hopefully see Hamilton in action and hopefully sort of see some other players that, you know, we haven't really seen a lot of and may want to stake a claim that the likes of Alex Gilbert, the likes of Dan Barlasser, the likes of potentially young McCormick at left back. You never know, he might be trusted and thrown in there. Of course, he was on the bench yesterday. And let's be honest, he's second choice left back at the moment. So, you know, he might well get a start. He might get that nod. But yeah, it's Leeds, so you don't want to kind of go there and have an absolute confidence killer where they do you 3 or 4. But my mind is already on the following game. It's already on Derby. And to be honest, we've spoken about kind of you've mentioned some of the early games and the other results in the Championship on the opening day. The Friday night saw Derby play their opening game of the Championship season and they got slapped back down to reality. As quick as you can say, Mel Morris, really. It is. Look, I'm going to have to be careful what I say here, purely because of the fact that we play them. But I think it may be a long season for Derby and Paul Warne. That's all I'm going to say on the matter.
Well, we had our predictions for the season last week, and you know what I said about Derby. And looking at them on Friday and seeing what they were all about, it was very much 4-3-3, cloggers at the back in terms of Curtis Nelson and Cashin. Cashin's a little bit shorter, a little bit better on the ball, But with that, he tries to step out and he finds himself out of position time and time again. Two of the goals on Friday night, he was out of position for. I think up front, players like Mendes-Lang, Caden Jackson, Barkhausen, although Barkhausen did come off, those players all have pace. They are a danger on the counter attack, I'd say. But with that, I think their main threat is set pieces. Really, they scored both their goals on Friday night from set pieces. Got some good defenders in the air. Really, even Cashin, who's a little bit shorter. Yeah, an interesting one. I did see a couple of tweets from Boro fans on Friday night, sort of looking at Derby's performance and already looking ahead to next week, obviously with them being our next opponents in the league, and sort of saying that we should have enough in terms of quality to win the game, which I agree. But going there, it's their first home game back in the Championship. It's already a sellout at Pride Park. The away end sold out as well, obviously. Yeah, with the little bit of, I suppose there's not a lot, but a little bit of animosity that sort of happened between the clubs a couple of years ago. That there might be a little bit of nastiness there, and they want to get one over on us. But yeah, look, I think if we just play our own game, focus on what we do, stifle them early on, get into our rhythm, I think we'll have a good afternoon next week. Another 12:30 kickoff on Saturday. Be up bright and early to travel down to Derby. Looking forward to it. It's a nice away day, Derby. I enjoy my visits down there.
Yeah, and I think I believe that there is potential history on the line as well. Emmanuel Latte-Lath and his scoring record continues for consecutive games. I mean, you'd quite fancy him to potentially have a couple of chances next week. And those legs in behind the likes of Nelson, it's a prospect, let's just say that. So we'll leave it at that, because we are guilty of the old kind of say one thing and it kind of curses the preceding event. So we don't want to go too overboard. But yeah, the main points, obviously, we're off the mark. The excitement levels haven't been dropped because we've kind of turned up like we did last season, first game of the season, and just been hit with a sucker punch. We're in a complete different position as a whole, and it reflects the whole mood of the fan base and everything, because there's everything that we are now adding to the squad is just supplementing what is already pretty good. It's an added bonus almost. Yeah, okay, left back and obviously that secondary striker is a crucial positions. But at this stage, there's no panic. I mean, at this stage last season, I think we were just tying up Engel and Latte-Lath. So, Hayden Coulson was still on the books and playing and starting football matches in the Football League. The less said about that, the better. No offence, Hayden Coulson. But the mood has changed, and I would just like to see a continuation of that. As you say, go and play the way that we can. Go to Derby, put on a show, as you say, on Sky again. And it will be a difficult test, because a newly promoted team in general is always difficult. But obviously the added kind of needle in the fixture because of the history between the two clubs, then yeah, okay, there's a little bit more at stake, I guess, in that sense. But in terms of Middlesbrough, I'm looking and I'm thinking, if we play to our best, if Derby play to their best, I still think there would only be one winner. But we've got to play at a certain level, because it's a different type of challenge to what Swansea will present. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to Leeds. I certainly would much rather beat Derby than I would Leeds. But I guess everyone's kind of got their own opinions on that. I'll be absolutely the complete opposite, the most diehard Cup fan if we go to Leeds and turn them over. So you've got that to look forward to potentially next week if we do. But yeah, Nathan, unless there's kind of any other points that you want to touch on or anything else, I think that that wraps us up for this week's Boropolis podcast.
It's nice to just finally do a season preview where we're full of optimism and have that carried in at least 1 week.
Yeah, at least 1 week. Yeah.
Yeah, it is really, really nice. So let's carry it on for 2 weeks with hopefully, but not really that fussed, a win at Ellen Road on Wednesday evening, the game on Sky, and let's go to Derby next week and make it 2 out of 2. 100% record. Let's go, Chris.
It's a crazy thought. It is a crazy thought to think that that's potentially even on the line. I mean, the fact that it's something that can happen is something in itself, really. So, yeah, let's kind of wrap it up there, Nathan. The excitement continues. The early season optimism hasn't been dashed away from us in the opening game, and it's a great time to be a Middlesbrough fan. Let's hope we get a few more deals wrapped up this week. Let's hope we potentially have a new striker that could come on and add to the 4 goals that were already in the lead at Pride Park. I'm just joking there, Nathan. I may have overstepped the mark. Yes, I'll wrap it up, as I say, before I say anything that will come back and can be clipped up for Derby fans, is immense kind of joy next week when they win 1-0 and Mendes Lang scores off his arse in the 97th minute. So yeah, we've got that to look forward to. Thank you very much for watching and listening, everyone. Thank you, Nathan, for obviously your time tonight. And yeah, overall, up the Boro. And we will see you again next week with another episode of the Boropolis Podcast.